Welcome back in, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited to be covering Kayvon Thibodeaux. Most of you have already heard the name in some form or fashion. A lot of you have probably already watched a highlight reel or two of Thibodeaux, the defensive end for the Oregon Ducks. He is scheduled and slated to be probably, most of the experts are telling us, the number one pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. Even if he's not the number one overall pick, he'll be right up there at the top, unless, and the only thing that would keep him from being drafted right there at the top would be an off-the-field issue or a major injury. And those two things can affect anybody. But unless one of those two things happen, Kayvon Thibodeaux will be right there at the top of the draft, unless some team just happens to not need an edge rusher, which is pretty rare. So in all honesty, he's probably going to end up right there at the top of the draft. We're covering several draft grades on him today. I want to be clear, though, we're not doing an NFL scouting report with measurables and things like that. In some instances, I don't want to say I don't care about the measurables, but I almost don't care about the measurables. And what we're really trying to do here is take a look at the video that I've watched and try to ask the question, what can Thibodeaux do well, and how would I use him if I were an NFL football team? That's what's really important to me and for any draft prospect for Thibodeaux today. And that's really what we're answering the question about. Okay, so we're going to look at his speed, his strength, his blockability. I'm going to look at his run stopping, whether or not he can be a defensive tackle, pass coverage, stunting, twisting in the flat, all those kinds of things. What can he do for me if I draft him? How do I fit him into the team? And that's what I'm really looking at here as we talk about him with the NFL draft. All right, let's get started. The first thing that jumps out, and most of you probably already know this about Thibodeaux, okay? The dude is fast, okay? And I don't know what his 40 time is. I haven't looked it up because I don't care. If you have that 40 time, or if you get it later on as the draft gets closer, by all means, put it in the comments. It's nice to know. I almost don't care, and I don't want to be rude and offensive when I say that, about what the 40 time actually is. When you watch the video, you just see it explodes off the film that Thibodeaux is just fast for a defensive end. Now, he's not going to, when he gets to the NFL, he's not going to be running races with Tyreek Hill of the Kansas City Chiefs or people like that. He's not NFL wide receiver fast, but for a defensive end, he is incredibly quick. I've got straight line speed, that's straight forward, and then lateral quickness, which is side to side. But even backing up, it doesn't matter which direction this guy is going. It doesn't matter what he's doing on a football field. He is going to do it fast and quick. And that is the one giant, large characteristic that jumps out at you when you watch Kayvon Thibodeaux. It jumps out when you do the highlight films, when you watch the games, when you slow it down and break down the film. The guy is fast. He's fast off the edge versus left tackles and right tackles. He's fast cutting back to the inside. If on the unusual occasion they actually stop him on the outside, he's quick right back to the inside. He's fast when he's covering running backs. He's fast when he's trying to chase down quarterbacks. He's fast when he's dropping into zone coverage. The guy is fast, and there's no other way to say it. And I'm going to quickly run out of adjectives and just be repeating myself, but I cannot stress that enough. For an NFL defensive end, for the kinds of guys we usually see playing NFL defensive end, the guy is so fast. Now, I don't know, some of you may not like comparisons to NFL players, especially comparisons to all-time NFL greats, but it's just a way to kind of bring images to mind of what we're seeing when we see Kayvon Thibodeaux. The two guys that I kind of sort of see some images of, and again, I'm not projecting him. I don't even care to project him to be an NFL great. I just want to know what kind of things maybe he can do for my football team. I kind of sort of see Dwight Freeney to some extent, but more to the point, I see DeMarcus Lawrence. I see two guys there with Lawrence and Freeney who just off the edge, not big guys necessarily, but off the edge, they just keep coming, keep coming, keep coming all day. They are so fast, so quick. They have so many different ways to get to the quarterback with their quickness. That's what jumps out at me with Kayvon Thibodeaux, okay? He has that in spades. The straight line speed, the lateral speed, again, it doesn't matter what he's doing on the football field. The speed is what jumps out, okay? And that's what allows him to be good at anything he does on the football field. Anything he's good at, The speed is what sets the table for it. Now, what is surprising about Kayvon Thibodeaux is the strength factor. Now, there are a lot of guys in the NFL who are going to be a lot stronger than him. But for a guy who is this fast, he is also surprisingly strong. And for a guy who's this size, 6'5", 258, I found that on 2 different websites. If some of you think 258 isn't the right weight, by all means, stick it in the comments. I'm not overly worried about what the weight number is. Again, we want to know what he's doing on the football field in college and how that projects in the NFL. And the best way to look at that is through videos. The numbers are nice, the numbers come in handy, but I'm not overly worried about whether he's 250 versus 265. He's not a huge guy by NFL standards. Now, that's all objective or subjective, right? I'm 5'8". I'm not a very big guy at all. Never have been, never will be. So somebody who's 6'5", 258 looks pretty big to me. But by NFL standards, and particularly even by NFL defensive end standards, he's not a very big guy. But for this size right here and for this speed, this insane speed that he presents, he's very strong as well. You see him pushing left tackles and right tackles back into the quarterback, and it's not unusual to see that from Thibodeaux. Now, he doesn't have to do that very often. Usually the left and right tackles are so overmatched with his speed that he's just around them one way or the other, one side or the other. He doesn't usually have to push them, but on the rare occasion that his speed isn't working against one of these tackles, he can push them back into the quarterback. Now, part of that isn't just his strength, and this is why I don't put his strength, and again, I don't know what he bench presses, I don't care. Part of that just isn't his raw strength. Part of that is that left and right tackles who are going up against Thibodeaux are so off balance from trying to stop him on the edge and from trying to stop him from spinning back to the inside. They are so off balance, it's almost as if they're playing on ice and Thibodeaux is playing on solid turf. And they're kind of slipping and sliding around trying to stop his speed and cut off his speed. In the middle of them being off balance, he's strong enough to push them straight back into the quarterback. Okay, so it's kind of a triple threat there that Thibodeaux presents. Incredible speed, and then strong enough for this size and weight and speed to actually push back on tackles. Now, he won't be able to do that as easily against NFL tackles as he does against college tackles, but he will be able to do that. He has enough strength, enough explosiveness through his core. When he pushes, he is able to push them. He is more on balance than they are. That will be a guarantee as he moves into the NFL level. He is so fast, he will be more on balance than most of the tackles that he's playing. And he's strong enough and explosive enough, even for this size, that he will be able to push some of those guys, not all of them, some of them back into the quarterbacks. And that will be a huge challenge for offensive tackles in football. Now, you take these things here and you grab them up in a bundle and you come down here to the blockability. Blockability is a made-up word. It's my own word, but it's an important word because you want to know, if I get this guy in the NFL, can I rely on him to get to the quarterback? And the answer is yes. His blockability factor, I've got it rated as an A, not an A+. When I think of A+ blockability, that is, what are the odds that anybody can block this guy on any given play for any reason, for any time at all? I think of Aaron Donald as being the all-time standard, not the all-time standard, but the current NFL standard. Aaron Donald at defensive tackle, not defensive end, but defensive tackle. He's completely unblockable. Even when they double team him, they have no chance. Aaron Donald is coming, okay? They almost have to triple team him and run away from him. Aaron Donald is completely unblockable at getting to the quarterback. I don't know yet that Thibodeaux is quite to that level, so instead of an A+, I have him at an A. But he is basically unblockable. For all practical purposes, NFL teams, if they want to block this guy or even slow him down, they're going to have to devote 2 guys to doing it, to blocking him. It's going to have to be a tackle and a tight end, or a tackle and a guard, or a tackle and a fullback, or a tackle and a running back. And even then, Thibodeaux is fast enough and strong enough to be able to shoot through some of those double teams. So for all intents and purposes, and this is what we really want to know right here. This is nice. This is nice. This is what we really want to know. Can this guy get to the quarterback at the NFL level? And the answer is yes. He is basically unblockable. he is going to force NFL offenses to spend a lot of resources blocking him, or he's going to force them to change their game plan to just run away from him with the quarterback, move the pocket out, and roll away from him. Okay, and even then he's so fast he's going to be coming and getting pressure. So basically, he's unblockable, and that's what we're trying to get to when we grab our speed and we grab our strength. This is what we want to know. Yes, he's basically unblockable, and that's why he'll be sitting at the top of the draft instead of, say, number 10 overall or number 20 overall. He's not just really good. He is almost unblockable. That's how fast he is, and he's got the strength to combine that with as well. Now, slide it over here. What all can I do with him? Okay, we know he's unblockable. We know we can get to the quarterback. That basically shows up on the highlight films. But if I'm an NFL team, what all can I do with this guy? And that's what I want to know right here, okay? First of all, how good is he at stopping the run? Well, the answer to that is he's solid at stopping the run, but he's not a big disruption. In spite of his speed and his strength, he is not yet. And part of the running game is simply the size. He doesn't really have enough body mass to be a massive run stopper. He just isn't. You know, if you felt like shoving him back to linebacker and teaching him how to be more educated in the running game, like a Bobby Wagner, I don't know that he has the instincts to do that anyway. Bobby Wagner, again, all-time great at stopping the run. I don't know that Thibodeaux has the ability to do that even if you wanted to, but I don't know why you would want to. His number one feature is getting to the quarterback, okay? That's really what you want to use him for. It's one of the hardest things in the NFL to acquire, aside from playing quarterback, is the ability to get to the quarterback. So there's really no reason to try to worry about necessarily shifting him to somewhere where that speed can be better used at stopping the run, like the linebacker position. You're going to leave him at defensive end. He's solid at stopping the run. He's not a liability. He's always working. He's pushing up the line. He's looking. He's trying to get the running back. And there are times when you get on the highlight film, you'll see it. There are times where he does break through with his quickness and is able to shut the running game down. But typically that's not what's happening, okay? Typically he's solid in the running game, but he's not going to shut down the running game. So if you were looking at, say, a Fletcher Cox for the Philadelphia Eagles, Cox throughout his career has been fantastic at getting to the quarterback, but Cox has also been fantastic at stopping the running game. If you look at Chris Jones, and I know I'm referring to some defensive tackles here tonight, but those are the names that are coming to mind, so forgive me for that. If you were to look at Chris Jones, for instance, played defensive tackle or defensive end, Jones is solid against the run, but he's not a major disruptor. He's a major disruptor at getting to the quarterback. So that's the difference. And I think Thibodeaux falls into the same category. Thibodeaux is amazing at getting to the quarterback, but he's only solid at stopping the run, and that's what you're going to see from him probably for most of his NFL career as well. Most of these characteristics do not change. It is amazing. There are very few players who transform themselves once they get to the NFL. They may get a little bit better at something. They may improve a weakness. They may get a strength and get even better at that strength. But for the most part, what these players are by the time they get to college, for the most part, that's kind of their nature, their characteristic, all the way through the NFL. Not always. There's a handful of players, maybe 5 to 10%, who change themselves so much. You could call it, instead of a body transformation, it's a player characteristic transformation. There are a few players, but not many. So for the most part, I don't necessarily see Thibodeaux becoming this giant major disruption at run stopping, although he certainly can improve. Kind of a C-level solid right there at stopping the run. What about playing defensive tackle? Okay, this is where it gets a little tricky. You're probably going to read scouting reports. I haven't, but when you watch the film, you see and you notice that Oregon slides him over to defensive tackle every once in a while, just to kind of mix it up, just to kind of put pressure on different places. Is that going to work in the NFL? And in my opinion, to what I've seen and to what I know about Thibodeaux, the answer is no. I do not see. Now listen, he's flexible enough to do this. And you may see in some scouting reports or in some draft reports that he can play anywhere on the defensive line. And technically that's true, okay? I don't mean to criticize that, but that in reality, that's not what he's going to be doing at the NFL level. You really don't want to put Thibodeaux in at defensive tackle because that's not where he can use his speed. He's going to get double teamed on every single play by a guard and a center, and he's just not strong enough, in spite of the fact that he's got surprising strength for a guy this size, for a guy this fast. He's not strong enough to be able to push double teams back into the quarterbacks. He's just not. And the reason for that is he's 260 pounds. He's not going to be able to push the pocket back into the quarterback from the defensive tackle position. He just doesn't have enough body mass. You really, if you're going to do that, you really almost have to be up in the 280-pound category or more to be able to start to push the pocket back into the quarterback. And he just does not have that. So I would be very surprised. I do not recommend. I do not think they should move him to defensive tackle, not even to mix it up. That's just not going to be something that you're going to see Thibodeaux doing at the NFL level. When they get him in crowded conditions, and listen, guards and centers in the NFL are mean, and they are tough, and they love to double team, and if they can, they love to put you in the dirt. He's not going to be able to use his quickness if he's playing defensive tackle. So that attribute right here, this speed, is gone when he's playing defensive tackle, and all that's left is his strength. And I told you earlier that even though he is surprisingly strong, he's not strong enough to be pushing guards and centers in the NFL back into the quarterback. That's just not going to happen, okay? So really, even though he can technically play anywhere on the defensive line, and even though he can and has played defensive tackle in college, that's not something that you really should expect to see him doing at an NFL level at all. It's just a whole different thing. Need to see him at defensive end. Doesn't matter which defensive end. He can go both ways. If you want to mix it up, by all means, have him playing both defensive ends, whichever one he feels like doing that game, or whichever one you think you need him at that game. But that's just something to keep in mind right there. Excuse me. Pass coverage. I put a Z here for zone, okay? And excuse me one second. I'm going to take a drink here. I put a Z for zone coverage. He's fast enough to guard tight ends. He's fast enough to guard running backs, even at the NFL level, in pass coverage. I mean, he's fast enough to do that. And even in Oregon, you see him dropping back into zones sometimes. And sometimes you may even see him carrying maybe a wheel route or a seam route up the field 15, 20 yards. That's not unusual. But my thought is, at the NFL level, why would you want to have him do that? He is instantly going to be targeted because it's not a skill set that he has. He does not have a skill set to guard double moves or to guard in routes or out routes or anything like that. He's just kind of hanging out with whoever he's guarding. So he's fast enough to hang with just about anybody in the NFL at the tight end spot or at the running back spot in terms of pass coverage. But why would you want him to? He's so fast. You really just need him to continue getting after the quarterback. If you had 2 or 3 guys on the defensive line who were fast and flexible and could kind of drop in and out of coverage and in and out of getting to the quarterback, that would be amazing. It would be a fantastic and fun defensive line to watch, right? We haven't ever really seen anything like that at these speed levels. But the very second that you drop Thibodeaux into pass coverage, you're confusing the quarterback, but you're also losing your best edge rusher by far. Nobody else on the team, any NFL team he lands on, will be as quick at getting the quarterback as he is. So I don't know really why you would want to drop him into pass coverage, even though he can zone up a little bit and he can kind of sort of shadow any tight end or any running back out there, or some of the big receivers even. He's fast enough to do that, but he doesn't have the skill set. It's not like he's going to be turning his head at the right time. It's not like he's going to be mirroring the routes that these guys are running. It's not like he's going to have a feel for when to put his hand on somebody's hip. It's not like he's going to have a feel for what the quarterback wants to do. It's not like he's going to be able to hang with any of the double moves that these guys put out there. So that's not something, even though technically, and you may see this, that is something he has done at Oregon. It's not something NFL teams are going to be asking him to do, because you're kind of putting him in a position to fail. Whereas at the getting the quarterback, that's something he excels at. So really, even though he can drop in the zone, he does have that speed. I don't expect NFL teams to be doing that at all, no matter where he ends up. This right here, okay, this right here is where it really starts to get interesting, okay? If you're an NFL team and you want to know what all can this guy do and how can we use him and how big of an effect can he have, this is where it really starts to be the icing on the cake. Right here's the cake, the speed, the strength. But here's the icing, okay? Twists and stunts. To me, they're the same thing. If they're different to you, by all means, post that in the comments. We'll all learn something together. But the twisting and stunting, that simply means the defensive end is here, the defensive tackle is here. The defensive tackle usually slides right down here and kind of creates a wall for the offensive tackle and the guard. And the defensive end hops over here, and there's different ways to do it, but basically the defensive end hops over here and shoots by his defensive tackle who's creating a wall. And usually, not always, usually you have an open pass to the quarterback. Twisting and stunting is something that NFL teams need. They don't have many guys who can do it very well because, most of them aren't very fast or fast enough because NFL quarterbacks are getting rid of the football so quickly. Thibodeaux is a guy who can do this, and he will do it very well. How good, I don't know, but I project him to be an A-level guy at twisting and stunting. And what that means is it starts to get in a quarterback's head. If I've got him lined up at left end and I've got him lined up at right end, either one, I've got to watch my peripheral vision. But now all of a sudden, if he's twisting and stunting, then he's right up in my face. And that really starts to mess with NFL quarterbacks. Instead of looking downfield and working through their progressions, instead, they're spending every second of every play wondering, where in the heck is Kayvon Thibodeaux? And their head is kind of on a rotating 360 look, okay? Even for the best quarterbacks, okay? Even a guy like Tom Brady, all right? Even Tom Brady would have to be wondering, where is Kayvon Thibodeaux? Do we have him covered? Even if I've called the right blocking assignments, is my offensive line going to be communicating well enough to pick up Thibodeaux on a twist or a stunt to the inside, and now he's right in my face? Tom Brady hates pressure in his face, absolutely hates it. He can feel the pressure on the edges. It's almost like he has a Spider-Man sixth sense for pressure on the edges, but he hates pressure in his face, and so does any other NFL quarterback, okay? And Thibodeaux is fast enough. Even if the quarterback spots him on a twist or a stunt coming up the middle, Thibodeaux is fast enough to catch a lot of these guys, okay? He's that fast. When you watch him on film, when you watch him going up against some of the faster quarterbacks in college, and there's a lot of fast ones, they just don't always have the ability to throw the football. Even if a guy can start shaking out of the pocket, Thibodeaux's fast enough to hunt those guys down, okay? This is where you really start to get excited, because now if I'm an NFL defensive coordinator and I've got Thibodeaux, okay, I don't think I want to put him at defensive tackle. I think it's a waste of time. I don't think I want to put him in right here at pass coverage. Sorry, I think that's a waste of time. But I can't wait to use this guy on twists, on stunts, and have him coming on both edges, have tackles worried about him cutting to the inside of them, and then having everybody on the offensive line worried about this guy doing a twist or stunt up the middle, and now the quarterback's worried about it too. And the quarterback is not able to look as deep downfield or as long downfield as he would like to. And oh, by the way, no matter which NFL quarterback you're talking about, Thibodeaux's fast enough to chase him down. I think maybe Lamar Jackson might be the only NFL quarterback that Thibodeaux couldn't chase down, possibly. Maybe there's another guy or two out there, but to me, Lamar Jackson might be the only guy. Everybody else here, Thibodeaux's got a chance of chasing them down. Okay, so that's where you really start to kind of drool and salivate here over Kayvon Thibodeaux. The other thing, and this is important, in today's NFL, this is so important. Can he get out to the flat? And this is so important because so many offenses these days, so many NFL offenses are passing to the running backs out in the flat. Even if they're not passing to the running backs out in the flat, they're setting up screens out there in the flat. And what you want to know is, for Thibodeaux, if for some reason they're double teaming him, but they're wanting to pass to the running back out in the flat, can Thibodeaux get out there? And of course, the answer is yes. He's fast enough to do that. Now, this is really a place that he can grow. This is a place that he can develop. And that is the ability to recognize those screens and to recognize when he's not going to be able to get the quarterback on a play, but when the quarterback is trying to dump off to running back out in the flat. Now, he's not going to be able to do that on every play, but his ability to recognize that, and that's why I've got him posted down on the B here. He's got the speed to get out there, but does he have that recognizability to be able to slide out to the flat and get these areas? And from what we've seen, he does, but he hasn't done as much of that as he has in getting the quarterback. So I've got him rated as a B. But a lot of NFL defensive ends these days are being asked to do that. If they can't do it, the linebackers have to do it. If the teams don't want the linebackers doing it, that usually means the defensive backs are all set up in zone and they're having to come in and do it. But if you've got a guy like Thibodeaux, who here on a screen that may take a little bit of time to develop, if he can spot that and get over and blow it up, and he's got that ability to do that, he can do a lot of damage here to NFL offenses, not just by getting the quarterback, but also by getting out there and stopping some of these short yardage plays that NFL teams just love, because there's a lot of free yardage out there to get in the flats. A lot of teams defensively are willing to give up running backs out in the flat, and they're willing to at least start to give up wide receiver screens and just try to limit those. If somehow Thibodeaux, especially on the running backs in the flats, if Thibodeaux can recognize that and hop out there, and again, that's something that the defensive coordinators are going to have to work on with him more once he gets to the NFL level. But that's an area too where he can really play a major disruption. Sideline to sideline, almost like a middle linebacker could do in some instances. Okay, that's kind of what you might be asking of him. That's not his forte, the twisting and the stunting to get to the quarterback. That's the main thing, but certainly that's going to be something that you'll want to see here. I almost feel bad doing this video because so much of my channel has been devoted to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I realize that the Kansas City Chiefs are probably not going to have any shot at drafting Kayvon Thibodeaux. So, and they've been asking for a defensive end here for 4 years, I think, maybe longer. So for those of you Chiefs fans who are tuning in, I apologize for even bringing this guy up. But Thibodeaux is the real deal. I think NFL teams are going to love what they get out of him. Everything that you're seeing on the video is showing up. If you want to hear more of the stuff that we do, I'm on several different platforms now. I encourage you. Championship Sports Media, that's a website on which I write a few articles, not a lot, but usually if you turn over to the football section of Championship Sports Media, usually somewhere in there, I write about one article a week on average. Appreciate you jumping over on there. Also, we do a podcast on Tuesday nights with Tony Keel and Jordan Schultz that is called In the Flat. If you guys are interested in college football, we usually take about 45 minutes to an hour. Have a pretty swift moving podcast there. If you don't want to hear it live on Tuesday nights, it comes out on Apple and Spotify. You can listen to it anytime during the week. It's called In the Flat, and Tony and Jordan and I talk college football there. So if you want to jump in on that, I would appreciate that as well. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening. We will do some more draft work. We'll do some more Chiefs work. Have a great one. Goodbye.